Hi, Rashonda here. We are reading Hagar's Daughter by Pauline Hopkins. We are on chapter 21, and it's longer than some of the chapters that we've had, so this reading might be a little bit longer than some of them. So I will try not to digress too much, but we will see what happens. Let's get started. Chapter 21. Time and tide wait for no man. Brains may throb and hearts may ache or break, but the world rolls on just the same for weal and woe, whether the grim skeleton that comes an unbidden guest on so many a man's hearth is shrouded in elegance or bare in all its appalling hideousness. It was not until 2 p.m. of Sunday that the secretary and stenographer had time to rest as they neared the close of their labors. Sumner felt a weariness of spirit and a dull aching of the heart that was not due to overwork. Worriment had removed the fresh, heartful bloom from his face, but the paleness and thinness added to its refinement and intellectuality, while the restless, feverish dilation of his dark eyes rendered them singularly striking and brilliant. So being overworked makes him look better? That's discouraging. More than once during this wretched time, he had been possessed with a longing to be back with his father in their quiet New England home. Yes, this shall be my last year in politics. I'll go home and take up the business for which I was born. It will please my father. As he turned to resume his work with a sigh, he became conscious that Miss Bradford was watching him. There had been a time when he had felt a passing admiration for the good-looking stenographer and had paid her some attention, but after he met Jewel, he had never pretended to give her a second thought. She, on her side, had not resented his desertion, but always seemed to retain a genuine regard for him, which had shown itself in many neighborly acts of kindness which the close intimacy of office life often brings about between women and men. I was with it. There is a close intimacy of office life, but then it said that brings about between women and men. It just brings it about to everybody in the office. Sexual tension may play a role in things, whether it's male to male, female to female, male to female, whatever. But I just think there is an intimacy in working in an office. I worked in an office at a university. This is a little close for me. Okay. I don't know what difference that made in the sound, but it was like visually bothering me. I could see it right there. Anyway, I worked in an office and we got really close. And I know that you all, many of you at any rate, can relate to that, getting close to the people you work with in an office day to day. Anyway, so it just jarred me when she said between men and women, but I'll keep reading. She had been rattling the keys of her typewriter at a furious rate of speed all day, and now, with a final pull of the carriage, finished her work. Then she rose with a sigh, crossed the room, and flung herself down on one of the couches opposite Sumner's desk, evidently bent on conversation. Mr. Sumner, you look, oh, I don't know how you look, but I should say a rest would do you good. I shall have one when the vacation comes. I am going home and I shall not return to Washington. Are you going for good? She asked in a surprised tone. Yes, he answered as he adjusted a pile of manuscript and began folding up the papers scattered over his desk. Washington holds no charm for me. She was silent for a time, and as she sat buried in a deep thought, she tapped the floor with one foot in restless fashion. At length she said, "Don't think me intrusive or that I seek to harrow your feelings, but isn't this sudden resolve the result of the misunderstanding between you and Miss Bowen?" "I will answer you as frankly as you have asked, Miss Bradford. It is so." There followed another pause, a silence so long that the young man thought that she had forgotten his presence. Suddenly she spoke again. "Mr. Sumner, I like you. I trust you. Why? I know not, for my experience in life has not been of so pleasant a nature as to cause me to trust anyone, not a man, surely." "Just as I suspected. But today I feel a desire to talk on forbidden subjects, to take someone into my confidence." I'm intrigued." Sumner looked at her keenly as he said significantly, "It is a safe rule, Miss Bradford, to keep one's own counsel." I feel impelled to tell you what I am about to disclose by an unseen power. Do you not believe in unseen forces influencing our acts? She asked wistfully. I cannot deny that I have sometimes felt the same influence of supernatural powers that you speak of, and I do firmly trust that the world of shadows and mystery to which we are all bound may be one of infinite love, infinite calm, and rest. For those who have been upright here, while a look of pain crossed her face, but what of those among us who have been guilty of many sins? That is the thought that haunts me tonight. She pushed her hair from her face with one hand as she looked up at him. So she's like, yeah, I guess the mysteries of the world are infinite love, infinite calm, and infinite rest if you're a good person, but if you're a sinner like me, it might not be. What is she about to say? Why trouble ourselves with such questions, Miss Bradford? Why not simply trust the judgment that sees not as a man sees? She felt calmed as she looked into the true, earnest face opposite her. Thank you, she said at last simply. Then, may I tell you? Whatever confidence you honor me by giving shall be sacredly respected. I know that. Did I not tell you that I trusted you? But you have my permission to tell Jewel Bowen as much as you think fit, for it is her due. Sumner colored as he said, I am not on terms of intimacy with Miss Bowen. I know that too, she replied impatiently, but you probably will be after you hear what I have to tell you. I too am about to leave Washington. When I leave the office tonight, I shall never return. Easter is 2 weeks off, and at Easter, I am to be married to General Benson. Married? General Benson? Impossible! You jest! Exclaimed the startled man. To General Benson, she repeated emphatically. But Miss Bowen will have a welcome release, she broke in. It is a long delayed ceremony that should have been performed 5 years ago. I have a son 4 years old, Mr. Sumner. Oh my. Sumner could not answer her. He stared at the woman before him with unseeing eyes. He could not believe that he had heard aright. A son, 4 years of age? He repeated mechanically in shocked surprise. This is most extraordinary. How can it be possible? No wonder you are incredulous. Wait, wait, she went on. Give me time. I will tell you all. It is your right to know. It has all been arranged so suddenly that my brain is in a whirl. I cannot think. She flung herself down against the cushions of the couch and endeavored to grow calm. Sumner waited, disturbed, unhappy, heartsick over this scene, fearing he knew not what. He watched her labored breathing, her clenched hands, and there was a long pause. Sumner cast anxious glances over at the bowed head opposite him, supported on its owner's hand. The fire blazed cheerily, and outside the wind rose, whirling the rain in great sheets against the window panes. It was a wild night. That strikes me. Finally, Elise Bradford sat up, pushing her hair back restlessly from her temples, and faced him white and agitated. All this misery that you have endured for the past month, she began slowly, all the sorrow you owe to one man. He has tortured you, fooled you, deceived you. Yes, it is true, but God help me, I love him. I do not comprehend your meaning, Miss Bradford. To whom do you refer? He asked soothingly, for there was the glitter of fever in her eyes. Silence! She interrupted sternly. I must tell you certain things for your own welfare and the welfare of the girl you love. I dare not hide them. Perhaps, who knows, it may be put down to my credit in that great future life toward which we are all journeying. In the years that are coming, when you are both happy and forgetful of this present miserable time, remember me and my misery with pity. Sumner could only wait in pained surprise for her to continue. She pressed her hands convulsively to her heart as she sat there white as death and trembling all over. Did it ever occur to you, Cuthbert Sumner, that you are the victim of a plot? You will speak in riddles, Miss Bradford. I must confess that I do not understand you. And yet you are a man of remarkable intelligence. That's exactly what I was thinking. How have you not, like, from word one from her, been like, I mean, could this be a ruse, like a double flipping of the script, and that Benson has arranged for her to do this? That's conceivable. But at any rate, from Sumner's perspective, as soon as she started talking, he should have been like, oh, but no, he's like, who are you talking about? I don't understand. Whatever, Sumner. And yet you are a man of remarkable intelligence and not a child in the world's ways. I cannot swear to it, but I believe that you have fallen into the net of two adventurers and a daring adventuress. Have you noticed any intimacy between General Benson and the Madisons? No, they seem to be merely chance acquaintances. And yet they are partners in crime. And I believe that General Benson introduced the Bowens to the Madisons. Great heavens, no, cried Sumner, a great light breaking in upon him at the bare possibility of such a thing being true. Miss Bradford, are you sure? He asked hurriedly. I am almost certain of the truth of what I say. You can easily ascertain if I am correct in my suspicions. I believe the intention was your fortune for Aurelia Madison, Miss Bowens for the general. But where do you get your information? Upon what are your suspicions based? Surely you have something to go upon, cried Sumner, recovering from his first bewilderment. How can I tell you? Oh, the shame of it all will kill me, she said as she drew a long, shuddering breath. Your distress pains me, Miss Bradford, said Cuthbert gently as he watched the wretched girl. He was moved more than he cared to show. Indignant, furious over the conduct of this scoundrel in a high place, he went to one of the wardrobes and opened the door, disclosing a compartment used as a wine closet. He quickly filled a glass from a costly cut glass decanter and carried it to the half-fainting woman, urging her to drink it. She took it eagerly from his hand and drained the glass. Yes, yes, I must go on. It is part of my punishment, my atonement. It is such misery. Shame. Shame. Too much? She sobbed brokenly. I heard he was about to marry Miss Bowen. I accused him of treachery toward you in the matter. I threatened him with exposure. I told him that he must make atonement to me and the child at once. He must do it, or I would speak. I would go to Miss Bowen with the whole miserable story. And he? Questioned Sumner gently, yet sternly, stifling his own feelings for the sake of the heartbroken woman before him, giving out strength and protection with womanly tenderness to soothe. Tell me all, and be sure that I will speak of nothing that you desire kept secret. To have you understand the man known as General Benson, I must tell you a portion of my history. Wait, let's back up. To have you understand the man known as General Benson. What? What? Is that not his actual name? How many fake identities do we have happening around here? Oh my goodness. Um, to have you understand the man known as General Benson, I must tell you a portion of my history. Excuse me, broke in Sumner. You say known as General Benson. Is that not his true name? No, it is not. And I cannot give you the true one. I have my own thoughts about it, however. So she cannot give it to him because she doesn't know it, or she won't tell. It sounds more like she doesn't know it. Ooh, okay. No, it is not. And I cannot give you the true one. I have my own thoughts about it, however. When I was 18 years of age, I came from Kentucky, where I was born, to Washington seeking employment. I was left an orphan while an infant and brought up by my aunt, who was too poor to support me after I entered womanhood. She did the best for me that she could, however, and I started out with high hopes, telling her that I should soon be able to repay her for her kindness and care. I had heard much of the large salaries paid to government clerks and determined to seek employment here. Arriving in the city, I went to call upon the congressman from our district, to whom I brought letters of introduction. He received me kindly and said that he would do his best to have me appointed. After a week, he sent me word to call at the Treasury building. There he introduced me to General Benson, who wanted a clerk. The general immediately engaged me, and it is needless for me to say that I was overjoyed at my good fortune. I was able to send my aunt money, and for a time I was perfectly happy. It is useless to dwell on the details. I wish to hurry over this part of my life. Suffice it that in 6 months' time, I had become the chief's victim. Just as we suspected. I am abhorrent to you, no doubt. You who have been rich all your life may despise me, but I had tasted poverty. I appreciated its effect on my future welfare, and I sickened at the thought of it. She paused a moment to take breath, for she had spoken rapidly, as if eager to have done with the shameful and painful details. Official wealth, power, and opportunity were my ruin. I was led to confide in the chief by his high position, and he, like others in such places, deceived me and betrayed that confidence. He was my first lover, for I was but 18, and I loved him as we always love the first man who teaches us what love is. That's interesting. He was my first lover. It doesn't mean she hasn't had other lovers, but it sure sounds like she has. I'm intrigued. Okay. He was my first lover, for I was but 18, and I loved him as we always love the first man who teaches us what love is. He didn't teach you what love is, Puddin'. That ain't love. And so many of us think it is. I might even venture to say most of us at some point have thought that something that wasn't love really was love. I admired his genial ways, his distinguished air, and even his success in his vices was a source of pride to me. He took advantage of my youth to mold me to his fancy and make me like himself. Oh, I can never make you realize the depravity of our elegant chief. For a long time, he was content with my love. I was young enough and pretty enough to satisfy even him. But after a while, he met Aurelia Madison, and then my agony began. What? Exclaimed Sumner. Do you know what you say? Aurelia Madison, one of General Benson's mistresses? And he is shocked. Why? That is not the worst thing about her, replied the woman with a bitter smile. Will you believe me when I tell you that she is a quadroon? So, I don't know if you've listened to some of my other readings on YouTube, but I talk about color cues. Like, we must pay attention to the color cues. And we have had so many contrasts between Jewel and Aurelia. Jewel is the white lily and perfect and Aurelia is the wild, colorful flower. And so a quadroon is somebody who is more or less 1/4 black. It's difficult, nay impossible, to get race down to percentages. But a quadroon is historically considered somebody who's had two mulatto parents or a mulatto and a white parent. Actually, more a mulatto and a white parent. A mulatto is somebody who has one white parent and one black parent. Clearly, that's not terminology we use nowadays, but it was terminology that existed back then, and it meant something to be a quadroon. And then you could go down to octoroon, and then after you got past octoroon, there are probably names, but I'm not aware of what they are. And so if you can imagine somebody whose 3/4 of their lineage is white and 1/4 of their lineage is black, looks like a white person. And lots of quadroons passed as white people, whether they did so permanently as their full lifestyle or they did so temporarily to escape from slavery, say, or even every now and then to just gain some advantages. I don't know if you've ever read Passing by Nella Larson. If you haven't, please read it. It's a very good book, and it's a short little thing. It's not very long at all. This is hefty. Passing is, I don't even think it's 200 pages. It might be like 150 pages, 120. I don't know. It's not a very long book. It is a very impactful book, though, and it is about racial passing, as the title describes. So anyway, Aurelia Madison is a quadroon. Okay, so no surprise. I still don't know who Hagar and her daughter are, but maybe we're getting somewhere. Maybe we're not. don't know. There's still a lot of book left. And by the way, this whole book is not Hagar's Daughter. It's 3 books. It's the magazine novels by Pauline Hopkins. So it has in it, oh my goodness. My kids say, oh my goodness, all the time. I picked it up from them. It's got Hagar's Daughter, Winona, and Of One Blood. So it's 3 books. This book is hefty, but it's not as hefty as it looks. So anyway, what? Exclaimed Sumner. Do you know what you say? Aurelia Madison, one of General Benson's mistresses? That is not the worst thing about her, replied the woman with a bitter smile. Will you believe me when I tell you that she is a quadroon? Impossible! You rave, almost shouted the young man. I would it were not true. Yes, she is a quadroon, the child of Major Madison's slave, born about the time the war broke out. That is why the 2 men find her a willing tool. Do they find her a willing tool because she's a quadroon and there's something wrong with the black blood that courses through her veins? Or do they find her a willing tool because she was born in a precarious time in our country and is Madison's daughter by a slave? What? Like, you can hold that over somebody? What? A daughter you can Anyway, that is why the 2 men find her a willing tool. And is she really willing? Is she willing to the same extent that, what's her name, who's talking, Miss what is her name? This secretary, what her name is? Bradford. Is she a willing tool? Maybe. I mean, she's making choices, but that doesn't necessarily mean she's a willing tool. Miss Bradford made choices. Did that make her a willing tool? I don't know. And so what does that say about how women think about each other and treat each other? Oh, she was a willing tool in their scheme. Maybe, maybe not. Like, maybe she got caught up and tricked, just like you did. Let's slow our roll. My God, exclaimed Sumner as he wiped the perspiration from his face. A negress. This is too horrible. Is being a negress horrible, or is it horrible that she was a negress and you didn't know and you feel like you have been duped because you were all in love with her for that one summer? Repeated shocks had unnerved him and he felt weak and bewildered. Do not blame her. Fate is against her. She is helpless. The education of generations of her poor foreparents has entered into her blood. I should feel sorry for her if I could, but I feel only my own misery and degradation. I am selfish in my despair. Happy, prosperous people sympathize with the woes of others, but sometimes I feel like laughing at their mimic woes. My own are so much greater in comparison. Whoa, okay. So of Aurelia, she is saying the education of generations of her foreparents has entered into her blood. Yeah, one of them being Major Madison. It's not like the black people are bringing her down. Her dad is a scheming, conniving person. Maybe she got that from him, and we're assuming he's white. And then this. Sometimes I feel like laughing at their mimic woes. So she feels like happy, prosperous people only have fake woes. My own are so much greater in comparison. Really, that is selfish. I'm not saying her woes aren't great. They sound like they are very great, but let's not get in a game comparing my woes to your woes. We feel our woes differently, and you don't know what their woes are. You have no idea what somebody has lived until you have lived it with them. And even then, if you're not them, you don't understand how they have experienced it. You don't know what their woes are, so you can't say my woes are worse. All right. And just for the record, there have been like so few speaker tags here, but we're doing okay. It's only a conversation between 2 people, and Miss Bradford is continuing. At least I'm assuming this is Miss Bradford. Yes, this is Miss Bradford. Yet Aurelia in a measure deserves our pity. The loveliness of Negro women of mixed blood is very often marvelous and their condition deplorable. Okay, so the whole trope of the tragic mulatto depends on the loveliness of Negro women of mixed blood that is often marvelous and their condition deplorable. Like that sums up the trope of tragic mulatto. They are and when you think of the trope of tragic mulatto, it can be a quadroon, an octoroon, a mulatto. It's just a catch-all. They are beautiful, every last one of them. I mean, maybe I've read a book that there was a tragic mulatto or mulatta who was not just the most beautiful thing you've ever seen and had this horrible, deplorable life. Like, why are they all so beautiful? I'm not upset about people being beautiful, but it's just reinforcing that thing that light skin is more beautiful than dark. All right, yet Aurelia in a measure deserves our pity. The loveliness of Negro women of mixed blood is very often marvelous and their condition deplorable. Beautiful almost beyond description, many of them educated and refined with the best white blood of the South in their veins, they refuse to mate themselves with the ignorant of their own race. Mate? She said mate. She didn't say marry. Mate like they're animals. And this is implying that all Black men are ignorant. Socially, they are not recognized by the whites. They are often without money enough to but the barest necessities of life. I bet that means to buy the barest necessities of life. Honorably, they cannot procure sufficient means to gratify their luxurious tastes. Are their tastes necessarily luxurious? What in the world? Although this whole paragraph seems to be a brilliant description of the trope of the tragic mulatto. So let's soak all of that in. Their mothers were like themselves, their fathers they never knew. Debauched white men are ever ready to take advantage of their destitution, and after living a short life of shame, they sink into early graves. Living, they were despised by whites and blacks alike. Dead, they are mourned by none. You know yourself, Mr. Sumner, that caste is found at the North is a terrible thing. It is killing the black man's hope there in every avenue. It is centered against his advancement. We in the South are flagrant in our abuse of the Negro, but we do not descend to the pettiness that your section practices. We shut our eyes to so many things in the South because of our near relationship to many of these despised people. But Black blood is everywhere, in society and out, and in our families even. We cannot feel assured that it has not filtered into the most exclusive families. We try to stem the tide, but I believe it is a hopeless task. That paragraph summed up so much of the stereotypical thought of the time. Let's read it again. Yet Aurelia in a measure deserves our pity. The loveliness of Negro women of mixed blood is very often marvelous and their condition deplorable. Beautiful almost beyond description, many of them educated and refined, with the best white blood of the South in their veins, they refuse to mate themselves with the ignorant of their own race. Socially, they are not recognized by the whites. They are often without money enough to buy the barest necessities of life. Honorably, they cannot procure sufficient means to gratify their luxurious tastes. And by honorably here, it means like within the law or without sex scandal. Their mothers were like themselves, their fathers they never knew. And it's hilarious that she's saying their fathers they never knew, which is definitely part of the trope, but Aurelia Madison knows her father. Debauched white men are ever ready to take advantage of their destitution. Yes, Madison totally was of his own daughter. And after living a short life of shame, and they often have short lives in our novels, read Passing. Also, read Quicksand, also by Nella Larson. If you're only going to read one Nella Larson book, it should be Passing, but Quicksand is also very good and it's also very short. And often Passing and Quicksand come in the same book collection. And I'm thinking about both of those books because we have tragic mulattoes with short lives. Okay. Living, they were despised by whites and blacks alike. Dead, they are mourned by none. You know yourself, Mr. Sumner, that caste is found at the North is a terrible thing. It is killing the black man's hope there in every avenue. And so this is also saying Northern racism is bad and it exists and it's bad. What a brilliant writer Hopkins is to get in this one speech, in this one paragraph, so many stereotypes that we are trying to combat. Wow. What a beautiful piece of prose. All right. It is killing the black man's hope there in every avenue. It is centered against his advancement. We in the South are flagrant in our abuse of the Negro, but we do not descend to the pettiness that your section practices. We shut our eyes to many things in the South because of our near relationship to many of these despised people. But black blood is everywhere, in society and out, and in our families even. We cannot feel assured that it has not filtered into the most exclusive families. We try to stem the tide, but I believe it is a hopeless task. Let's read that one more again. We cannot feel assured that it has not filtered into the most exclusive families. We try to stem the tide, but I believe it is a hopeless task. So there is a book called by George Schuyler, and it's called Black No More. And it talks about how black blood has filtered into the most exclusive families, and you try to stem the tide, but it's a hopeless task. The book is it a farce? Is it satire? I think it's satire. I am currently unable to dredge up the difference between farce and satire. Oh, it's funny. So Nella Larson's passing was about 1929. Quicksand was a similar time frame. I'm not exactly sure when. Schuyler's Black No More was also in like that 1930s. I feel like 1934 maybe. I'm not exactly sure, but it was in that kind of time frame. Harlem Renaissance time frame. Schuyler, I think, was a little bit on the outside of the Harlem Renaissance time frame. And if those books were not copyright protected, I would 100% be reading them. And if I am still doing this when they are not copyright protected, I am going to run to them and read them aloud. All right, back to our text at hand. We've got about 4 more pages. Sumner listened to her, bound by the horrible fascination of her words. At last he said, "But a white man may be betrayed into marrying her." "Aw, boo-hoo, Aunt Puddin'. I certainly came near to it myself." "Very true. And if she had been a different woman, she would have succeeded. You would have been proud of your handsome wife because of your ignorance of her origin. As life, real life, has unfolded to my view, I have come to think that there is nothing in this prejudice but a relic of barbarism." Yes, there's nothing in this prejudice but a relic of barbarism, yet you're still clinging to it. And what is this? Okay, so he said, "I certainly came near to being betrayed into marrying Aurelia." And Miss Bradford says, "Very true. So I guess she knows some of his background that he thought nobody knew." But then she says, "And if she had been a different woman, she would have succeeded." I guess she's saying if Aurelia were a better person, that Cuthbert Sumner would have been in love with her, like for real and lasting, and actually married her. All right. I believe this is Sumner speaking. "Perhaps your reasoning is true. I will not attempt a denial, but I am thankful for my deliverance." Your feeling it deliverance. Wow. "Your feeling is natural. Certainly I do not blame you," she said, and after a slight pause, resumed her narrative. "One day the general came to me and told me that we must part. I owe you many obligations for your kindness. You have made the past few months very pleasant. Of course you knew it was only for a while and that it must end some day. It is past now, and we will each go our way, just as if we had never met. You must know that with men of the world, these things are very natural and very pleasant. Here is some money," and he thrust a well-filled purse in my hands. Oh my goodness. I mean, I am trying to get through this. I really am. But oh my goodness. He was like, "You knew this wasn't going to last when it got started. You know what men of the world are like. We are going to act as if we have never met." So he's saying that kid we have together doesn't exist for me. Here's a little money. Be on your way. Oh. Oh, oh, oh. This reminds me of Let's Talk About Sex by Salt and Pepper. So there's a verse that goes, hot to trot, make any man's eyes pop. She usually got to get whatever she don't got. The fellas drew like fools, but then again, she's only human. This chick was a hit because her body was booming. Gold, pearls, rubies, crazy diamonds. Nothing she wore was ever common. Her dates, heads of state, men of taste, lawyers, doctors. No one was too great for her to get with or even mess with. The president was next on her list, and believe me, you, it's as good as true. There ain't a man alive that she couldn't get next to. She had it all in the bag, so she should have been glad. But she was mad and sad, feeling bad, thinking about the things that she never had. No love, just sex, followed next with a check and a note. That last night was dope. Uh, take it easy now. So that's what this reminds me of. She was beautiful and she was with heads of state, men of taste, lawyers, doctors. No one was too great for her to get with or even mess with. The president was next on her list. And believe me, you, it's as good as true. There ain't a man alive that she couldn't get next to. She had it all in the bag. So she should have been glad, according to the men. But she was mad and sad, feeling bad, thinking about the things that she never had. No love. She had no love, just sex, followed next with a check and a note. That last night was dope. And that's what Benson is trying to pawn off on this. What is her name? Bradford. Oh my gosh. This is just ugly. It's just ugly. Oh, here is some money, and he thrust a well-filled purse in my hands. My heart was filled with terror and agony. But you said that you loved me, I managed to falter in a dazed way. Well, perhaps for the moment, but can you understand these things? I will spare you as much as I can. If I am harsh, you press me to it. If I'm harsh, it's your fault, boo? No, sir. He spoke lightly, carelessly to me as I stood before him, crushed for all eternity. To me, who had fallen without a thought of resistance under the charm of his manner and beauty that have ruined more than one woman among those who are above me in wealth and position. It is left for men to change quickly. He seemed dumb, frozen, dead to all feeling. His heart and mind were filled with the dazzling beauty of his new love, the negress Aurelia Madison. He had nothing left for me, not even pity. Then he continued, Elise, it is particularly necessary for my future plans that this affair of ours be kept secret. If you bury it in your heart and seal your and seal your lips upon it, you shall be recompensed finally. Not only have I toyed with your emotions, I need you to tell nobody about it. In essence, he's like, here's your non-disclosure agreement. Here's the money that goes along with it. Oh, I need some water. Gracious. mm. If you bury it in your heart and seal your lips upon it, you shall be recompensed finally. I will never lose sight of you and the boy, but direct that a large sum shall be paid to you yearly. If not, people have died for a less offense than that. He's threatening to kill her if she discloses him? Oh, the power and entitlement of a white man is boundless here. And I am not saying that all white men are like this. Truly, please believe that I am not. But wow, this example of white male privilege is just stunning in how blatant and how casual. It is just how casual. You are dealing with people, your child, and you're like, I'll give you a sum of money annually. And if you don't do everything I want you to do, I'll kill you. Boop, boop. Oh. Mm. While he was talking, I was thinking deeply and rapidly. I felt that my only chance lay in matching his cunning with diplomacy. I made up my mind to compromise the matter. He was stronger than I. I could do nothing at present. Finally, I told him that I would agree to all he asked if he would allow me to retain my position in the office with him and would provide for the boy and educate him. And honestly, that was her best option. Oh, this he agreed to do, and there has been a sort of armed neutrality between us. An armed neutrality. Wow. There has been a sort of armed neutrality between us ever since. I have learned much by being here. I know enough to ruin him. I planned for it, and I have succeeded. He dares not go against me now, and so he has promised marriage, and I shall once more hold my head up among honest women. Why? Why, ma'am? Why do you want to marry him? Why do you want to tie your life to this man in a way beyond the tie you already have through your son you have together? You have outplayed him in this game of chess, and he is going to resent you for it for the entire rest of his life. You think your marriage will be a happy one? No, ma'am. No, do not marry him. Oh, Sumner felt a great wave of pity sweep over him at the thought of this delicate woman hoping to cope with the cunning deviltry of the man she had unmasked. Unmasked, an interesting idea, what talking about passing and the like. But he could not find it in his heart to speak one discouraging word. His eyes filled with tears which were no shame to his manhood. Where is the child? He asked, when he could collect his scattered thoughts enough to speak. In Kentucky with my aunt, she replied, naming a town. If what you tell me is true, and knowing what I do, I cannot doubt your story. General Benson is a consummate villain, a dangerous man, said Sumner as he paced the floor in excitement and wrath. It is not possible that such things can be and go unpunished. Of course it is. Of course it is possible that such things can be and go unpunished because it happens all day, every day. You know now why I think it all a plot against you. Cannot you see for yourself? Yes, I can never repay you for what you have done. Do not mention it. I shall be repaid if only you circumvent that woman and all is made right between you and Miss Bowen. It had grown very dark and Sumner lighted the gas. I will call a herdic and see you home, he said, if you will come now. It is long past the dinner hour. We have been here long enough. I feel it impossible to stop here longer. The place stifles me. I cannot go yet, she replied. I have papers to sort and many articles to destroy as well as to gather up. I never wish to see the place again. I will stay then until you are ready to go. No, that is not necessary. Thank you. Give me the key. I will lock up and leave it with the watchman. Well, then, if you are not afraid, he said reluctantly. He was dazed by all he had heard and wished to be alone. When he was ready to leave, he took her hand in his and shook it warmly. Anybody besides me feel like she's going to end up dead, whether by her own hand or somebody else's? Is that foreboding only in me, or are you feeling it too? Goodbye, my friend, and that Cuthbert will get accused of it because he was the last one with her and everybody knew because Benson told everybody that was what was happening. Anyway, goodbye, my friend. You have given me renewed hope. In after years, Cuthbert remembered her face with its varying, changing tints, hope and despair, each struggling for the mastery. Okay, so in this sentence, the varying, changing tints are hope and despair, but it could be like racial cues. We don't know. Maybe everybody's Black in this book. We do not know. And that is part of the point. You don't know. Yes, she said softly, I am your friend, but friendships are short, made to be severed. Still, I am sure we will meet again. How strange it is that lives are touching thus all the time. Strangers yesterday, today helping each other. Let us hope so at least, touching, parting, but not forgotten, not utterly forgotten. There was a new dignity in her manner that he had never noticed in the silent stenographer, but there was still a weary, listless tone in her voice. He pressed her white fingers with his strong, eager hand, feeling his heart throb with suppressed excitement, the joy of living once more. He lifted her cold hand and touched it with his lips. Goodbye, then, once more. Someone said once that meant, God bless you. I could say no more if I knew that our parting would be eternal, which it is not. I want you to know Jewel. She looked at him steadily a moment, then her face fell. A slight tremor passed over her face. She was unaccustomed to the chivalrous treatment that men give to women who they respect. The hand he had kissed fell to her side. As he turned to close the door of the apartment, she was still standing where he had left her with listless hands and bent head. Woo! Okay, I feel like I went on an emotional roller coaster there with chapter 21. That was chapter 21 of Hagar's Daughter. Until next time.